the select board meeting on December 17th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. Tonight we have all select board members in attendance. This meeting is being recorded, and would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alrighty, so we are going to open and close a public hearing here, and we'll talk about that in a second. So it's 6:30 p.m. and we're going to, the Mendon Select Board will continue a public hearing on Wednesday, December 17th at 6:30 p.m. in the Upper Town Hall located at 20 Main Street, Mendon, Massachusetts, to consider the application for Vandervocht Farm for a farmer brewery pouring permit, farmer series winery pouring permit, and application for 19H farmer series pouring permit located at 18 Level Street in Mendon, Massachusetts, 01756 under Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 12. So now that the hearing is open, we are going to close the hearing.
Yeah, just to give everyone some context. So where it says under MGL Chapter 138, Section 12, and resident's attorney said that's the incorrect notification. We should be notifying under Section 19, and they're right. We spoke with, I had a conference call with the ABCC, our attorney, the applicant, and we need to re-advertise the hearing. So we will be opening up this public hearing on January 7th, the first meeting in January, and sending around all new notifications to abutters. And because it wasn't really it was our incorrect information, but it's not done maliciously or anything like that. But we're not going to charge the applicant for the resending of all the certified mail. The town will do that. It seemed unfair to make them pay for two things when they had no say in what was in this. So we got guidance from the ABCC, which was counter to guidance that we initially got from council. So we will take ABCC's guidance, reissue the public hearing, and then have the public hearing on January 7th. And then the concerns and the questions that were brought up at the last meeting relative to various parts of MGL and licensing. I think we've answered all of those with the ABCCs. And then also continue the public safety discussion on the navigability of the road as well. So the motion here would be to close this public without a vote.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion based on what Jeremy just said? Everybody understand what's going to happen? All right. All those in favor, roll call.
Thanks for feedback. Thanks for input.
Oh, I'm glad we any help I could. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Yeah, thanks. So roll call vote, right? For a public hearing?
Close.
No? Okay. No roll call. Cooter, aye. No roll call though.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Yeah. So on to number 3, which was, so they were all here for that. Citizen statements and petitions. So I'm opening up the floor for anybody in person or online who would like to address the board. All right, seeing as there's none, I'm going to move on to number 4, which is community events and announcements. So this Friday at Willowbrook on Route 16, just right up the street from Town Hall here, we will be having a town holiday party from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And so everyone is invited. We'd like to see you there. For letter B, World War II Childhood Memories Project. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so this is being run through the Senior Center. So it's partnering seniors at Nipmuc High with seniors, as they're referred to in the community, folks who were children during World War II, and taking their oral histories and writing them down to memorialize it. So There was an extraordinary impact in World War II on the daily life on the home front in Americans in ways that wars since kind of haven't had that same daily life impact. So the Senior Center is participating in this program. So looking for, we have the students identified through NIMA, but looking for seniors in the Mendon community who were children during World War II and would look to share their stories with this community action project. So looking for volunteers. They're starting in the later half of January. So anyone who's interested, go ahead and reach out to Amy Wilson-Kent at the Senior Center, and we'll pair you up with a Nipmuc High senior.
Great. All right. That sounds pretty awesome.
And because you called it out, Barbara Lawson is the volunteer at the Senior Center who's spearheading this event. So thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
All right. So meeting minutes for approval. I saw an email. These have been adjusted.
Yes, just one spelling of level.
Okay. So the meeting minutes for approval with the adjusted spelling for Level Street for November 5th, 2025 and November 19th, 2025, I would be looking for a motion.
Actually, I had a minor edit for the 11.5 one, which is so for OLV, it says OLB a couple of times.
I can imagine the miss there.
It's, it's pretty minor, but I saw it.
That's
Figured I'd
our
mention
meeting
it.
of the Valley. Is that?
I believe so.
Yes.
All right, so I'd look to have a motion to accept with the amendment for the spelling for OLB.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes. Thank you. And then in your packet was, or not in your packet, the meeting for circulation email of December 3rd, 2025 for next time. All right, so the ADA STEP grant for fiscal year 2026. Do you want to talk about the improvement grant?
Yeah, so this is ADA, so it's actually SATP, self-evaluation and transition plan. So this is something the town will require to have. We're a housing choice community and you need a self-evaluation. I don't know why they're linked, but they are. So you need a self-evaluation and transition plan to open up housing choice community grants. It's also just a good guiding document for the town to make sure we're adhering to our obligations under the American Disability Act. So what the plan is we have our ADA coordinator, who is Dylan Lindholm, the town planner. Right now, Dylan's taking on kind of low-hanging fruit stuff that's really evident to them. But this grant, and I don't have the total amount in front of me right now, but this grant would allow us to hire a consultant to come in and do a fully fledged proper plan. The plan that we have now is, I think, 13 or 14 years old and is about 15 pages long. I did one with the city of Attleboro and it was like 1,200 pages.
Who are we filing that with?
So this is,
Is that for ourselves in order to reference with these types of things, or is that like an MGL?
It's not an MGL to have one. The plan allows us to be compliant with our designation as a housing choice community, which opens up other grant opportunities. It's also, we are under a federal obligation to be accessible in various capacities. And what this plan does is kind of gives us, this study does, or this program does, will give us a roadmap on how to get there.
So it's end-to-end, it's more than just housing.
Yeah, it has to do with town-owned resources or town-owned facilities. So it's the built environment, like town hall here, signs, doors, elevators, parking spaces, the things you typically think about. But then it's also things like the website and signage and things like that, where you can, how folks can navigate and access public spaces.
Okay.
Nobody does it perfectly, and you're not under an obligation to implement the plan immediately. But oftentimes when you do a building project, if you're doing more than, threshold, but something like 30% of the building value, you need to bring it up to ADA accessibility. So this would let us know what all of those are in all of our spaces.
And by identifying those things, like do we open ourselves up
It
to
does-
liability?
No, it does not. It does not create an obligation.
Okay.
Yeah, it does not, just because we know about it, it does not create an obligation. It's when we go ahead and do any sort of upgrade, we know the things that we need to do.
It does tie back to sort of the vision discussions we've had. Inclusivity, things like that. It's sort of the side of the ADA people don't really think about. I think it'd be good to have to reference longer term.
And, you know, our environment is a lot different than it was a decade plus ago. Like, things have changed. So even if the plan was robust at that point, which it's not quite as robust as I imagine the next one will be, it's dated. Nice to have for us, and to have a grant to support this is excellent too. So this motion would be to accept the grant and approve the town administrator to sign all the related grant documents.
So move.
Any discussion about allowing Jeremy to sign these docs and get this grant for ADA going?
Comment, it's Dylan's gonna be point on this.
Yes.
If there's any synergies across any of these other documents you have, I know it's not housing related, but housing has ADA components to it, so our production plan.
Mhm.
I'd love to see if she can start to drive some synergy.
And just quickly, the grant is up to 65,200.
So good amount.
Yeah, I think we paid 75,000 in Attleboro for a much bigger study, so that's a really healthy budget for us.
I don't know if I missed this, but what's the time frame for the grant?
Fiscal 26.
Okay. Oh, so
We need to get.
fast. Yeah. Okay. Fast turnover. Okay. So is this, and that's for the consulting about that, but then the product potentially could extend. I mean,
So
that,
yeah, so what this grant would be used for, we would contract with a place like, I'm not gonna say one of them, but with a consultant who typically does things like this. They would come in and survey
Mhm.
stuff, they walk around every inch that we have that the public has access to. And then come up with a report on guidance. So it's a couple of months. It's reasonable to get it done by June, but you know, we need to get started in
but
January.
the sort of document that you talked about, that could, we expect the developing of that to potentially take longer.
That needs to be done by June.
That also, the whole document needs to be done.
So
by
that's
June.
what
Okay. Okay.
So I just want to clarify that, so that transition plan has to be done by June for a reason.
That's when the grant.
Oh, but I would say, I think what I heard was we could bring a consultant and do all that due diligence and heavy lifting of researching, collecting information that possibly could turn into a report in FY 27, if, you know what I mean? We have that resource available for us to do a certain amount of work.
Yeah, that wouldn't be ideal for me to have someone else do the work and then I'll spread the report thereafter. I would
Okay.
want the procurement to be, you do the
Ah.
work and write the
Yeah.
report.
Oh, okay. So they will
That's-
do that as well. Okay.
Especially because we have grant money to do it.
Okay.
But you're right, and if we're at June 15th and we don't have the report done, we would amend whatever agreement, say, give us all the data, we'll write the report, thank you, here's your check. Because we need to have we need to have the money expended by June 30th.
Yeah.
And we can't expend the money unless we have the deliverable, so.
That consultant is individual contributor, so they should not be held up by anything within a municipal operation. So I don't want to slow them down to meet your deadline.
Once we procure them, they can.
Okay.
Or 80 hours a week to do it.
I mean, is there an approval process that needs to happen that gets built in?
To select the vendor.
No, I was actually, well, that's a different question, but for the report, I don't know, I mean, I'm just thinking about sometimes it does take a while to generate
Like
these large
accepting it
documents.
outside of.
Yeah, accepting it on our side, and are there public hearings involved, or, you know?
Yes, there wouldn't be public hearings. We would just style the procurement to say the deliverable needs to be in our hands in a final version by June 30th. Meet that deadline, they wouldn't give us.
Version, you can also build in, I'd say, iterations, so you sort of, would we get a look at something? I mean, final version would be, here's your final version, you may or may not like output, right? So we want a few, look
I don't
at.
know if we want it up to us, right? We want the more direct, straight, narrow answer about what needs to be done.
Well, I'm not necessarily, the format of the report versus necessarily the content.
Like the
I
speculation.
mean, I guess, yeah, I'm imagining that they have some sort of boilerplate that they work with for different towns and
I've
they.
seen many boilerplates in with contract. I'm not kind of
Like, hello, Mendon.
right. That's all. I mean,
Yeah, all that's, you know, a lot of that is kind of TBD based upon how we start determining what, how long the data gathering takes, you know, if we're into May before we get a draft report, it's going to be tough to have a revision to it. But we can, like our labor attorney says, we can put anything in a contract as long as they agree to it. So we can put anything in a procurement document, and then if someone responds to it, those parameters. So,
I would be more curious. Whenever they deliver it in July, it can always be read in July. And evaluated at that time.
yeah, because when the report comes here and it says you need to, you know, in order to be fully compliant with ADA, you need to do these 1,200 things. It's not like we start in August. It's,
I imagine that's have to be spread across departments and planned out, tasks.
right, and then we would have to come to town meeting, get a free cash appropriation to do.
You throw it through the capital planning committee and let them prioritize appropriately. If they could.
Yeah, if you look at it as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah, the larger items for sure. Yeah. Right, if it says like, you know, fix the masonry on the.
Yeah, but if you look at it as a town-wide capital improvement, like if it's like, okay, so say it's 1,000 items and it's $1 million, right? And so it's like, here's your average across each item, and capital takes it on as a cross the town general improvement of ADA, as opposed to building, you know, the town building repairs a ramp, and here's $200. It's just another way.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, I think that to bring it back to the actual word. All good thoughts and execution, but maybe just get the information.
Right, we're just got to
Yeah.
could come back $100 million and then be a different story.
So what I will say, I've done two of these. Both times I thought the analysis was really good about, you know, door handles and ramps and thresholds and clearances around corners and stuff like that. I thought their cost estimating in both instances, two totally unrelated entities, their cost estimating was just really bad about what public procurement actually looks like. You know, to do that walkway, it'll cost $1,200. Not like $7,000. You know what I mean? So,
I was hoping you go in the other way, like.
You're saying they're good at identifying the problem, but not estimating what's going to cost to fix.
But we might have to like have a separate set of
Not
analysis.
unusual.
and then also, you know, I said 1,200 that we don't do until 2040. It's going to cost 6 times what they think. But just trying to set that in
Another
In 2040, yep.
Now you're all running 6 more times. So. Do you have a vote?
Oh, no, we did not have a vote. We were just in discussion. So it was motioned and seconded. So is there any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes. All right, number 8. So Lenny inspired some other members to submit these conflict of interest disclosures for them to participate in the same way. So hopefully you read through those. We don't have to do any voting.
Nope,
It's
there's
stored.
right. It is filing. So this is just your tacit acceptance. So I have one question on this. So Lenny Morgante, who filed the conflict of interest disclosure before for his LLC that he owns, is a career firefighter. The highway superintendent and the fire chief had a discussion on that. When Lenny's on, you know, working, he's obviously not going to. So what happens? So it's an LLC, and there are multiple listed drivers. So like, it's police from market. These two folks who are here, Moritz Schmidt and Shane Drake, are call firefighters. So John and Jason had a discussion earlier today about what, the threshold of if they're on call, if they're working, if there's something going on, then they're obviously not going to be plowing. And then if they're plowing and something happens, what are the types of situations which they would have to then stop and go do? In the same way that we have you'll get hearing probably at the next meeting. We have a career highway person who is who's going to be an on-call firefighter, and the same thing, like he doesn't get called for just medical transportation, but if there's a pre-alarm structure fire, it'd be cool. Highway sorts of things. So they've got a working arrangement. I've asked them to reduce that to writing, so we have it. We don't have it right now, but they've got in terms of departments that work really well together and operational needs, those two, fire and highway, do a really good job.
And stuff like, if they're hourly employees, do they get paused when they leave one job to go to another, like that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so within MGL, there's actually a very specific carve out for call firefighters, and there's special school employees. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's prescribed in how we do it, and it's written in our labor.
Right, I can go with that, that's just awesome.
We're not figuring out on the fly. And I will say, Shane Drake is a new call firefighter, has worked for us before, so that's why this is. And then Moritz has been doing this for a while and has been working, and it didn't have to come up as a thing that they needed to file until we bring it this one.
More transparency, it's good.
Yeah, no issue on this. He's already been filed with the town.
All right, so number 9, application updates. So there are 3 separate categories here for the approvals, and Katie, do you want to walk us through the tab, the motion to approve tab? So we should do the sorry, I'm reading this backwards, I think. Where are the new common vics in here? Adult.
Share
All right.
It's a separate email.
Sorry, is 9, I thought about the application like forms versus the actual.
Oh, is it?
application.
Yes.
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, that's why there's no vendors listed.
Yeah, that's why I'm looking through it. I'm not matching it up. So rewind. The application updates are what Katie had mentioned last time we met. Now that I'm tying it all back together. And yeah, do you want to talk about updates you've made to these and how that's going to be easier for people and for us?
share.
I messaged senior center director, just talked about this, and she said we've had 3 seniors sign up, so right, and now we have three seniors participating.
Senior citizens.
Seniors, as they're referred to by seniors.
Senior squared.
My computer is just not working. It's not really allowing me to pull up Teams. But what I had done is I went ahead and put the steps for the licenses. So to apply for a new common vic license, for example, the steps the applicant would need to take to renew the common vic license. There are the list of steps here, different documents that are needed, the fees each
Sure, I was just
each step. The fees for each step, like the annual fee, the abutter list fee, the advertisement, the comment. Well, the common vic doesn't need that, so I have to update this, the advertisement fee. And then just the forms, I made them look a little bit nicer, so it's still the same content on the form for like the attestation form. And then, so that was the common vic. And right here, do you see how it says like, I put the wrong one. All right, so there's the license and And it says like new and renewal. So when we're doing the renewals each year, everybody might not have to have the same documents. Because we're just getting the same documents over and over again each year. And at the bottom, once the publication is given to you, I have a portion where it will show, like for town use only. Action if it was granted or not. And any other departments that might need to be that versus, like, so we have the routing slip to the appropriate department. Right now, it just kind of goes through the departments every time.
So, I mean, I'm not sure exactly how the process works. So is there a separate Board of Health form that they also need to fill out? There are a number of processes for the Board of Health. So they have their own form. And so this is specifically just for the license that the select board grants.
So yeah, what the Board of Health, this block, it's a check to make sure
That
that.
they actually submitted all those forms. Okay, excellent.
And then if there are any comments, and I think this is a nice place to keep the license number, because you don't always have a copy number with. What?
And Mike Goddard was just asking, we're doing a larger, it's in my TA report, we're doing a larger push on OpenGov today. And the first thing that we're doing is getting the select board licenses and permits for the transition to OpenGov. So we can do this and checks, right? We can make it dynamic. All these Board of Health, select board, that will all happen natively within the
To timeline.
We're trying to price out, that's some information. So, we're not gonna add any tiles in 2026, just because our build out is going to take. Anyway, but I think to get our first three, which would be select board, planning / zoning, for health, they're not gonna charge us for compound because we should. Is tough. So right now we've paid for it, got it, there's no additional cost for that. We have Department 155, which is IT, where we pay for right now. So we would likely look for, as we find the utility in this and look for additional departments that we can do in 27. The 55 budget is for 27 would probably include $18,000 more, $12,000 more, whatever it is, for like 2 more tiles, so to speak, because we're trying to incorporate some of the ones we currently.
Yeah, it's tough growing budget.
Goals around data and measurements to start, and sitting in inspectional services, which stuff not being used at all to its capability. And that was voiced by just about everybody in that building to me. And so we sort of talked about, well, why don't we take a step back and worry about optimizing the software, especially it was coming due in spring.
Right, so this contract was up March 31st. And we had talked about re-procuring for a lower cost one, but that comes at the expense of productivity, about how much the service can really provide for us. So act of saying we're going to extend from April 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027. So essentially, a year and a half, year and a quarter worth of timeline to say, let's put a, fully fledged effort to utilize this tool. And if at the end of that, we still don't find the utilities. Everybody Dylan went home and I spent a lot. And so we're starting with select board. That's where stuff. Dylan to put together great.
They have enough time.
Dylan?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not a lot going on in GBA right now. So, and Dylan previously worked for Permit Eyes, which is a permitting software. So they kind of think in this language and world and process and framework, which gets better. And also, you don't need that. That's a bunch of garbage. That's just sales. Yeah, but Mike and Dylan are really spearheading this.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Thanks, Dylan.
I got it to work. So, the next one would be. The entertainment license. Entertainment license, I just going through the meeting with everyone and, with the select board. I just added some of the questions that I've noticed that the select board has asked over time. The current, application didn't really ask for many details. It's also gonna help us have, like, let's say they got a new pool table. Any kind of different activities that would be included in the entertainment license. So if you guys have any feedback on things you'd like.
Just kind of think about some of the licensing in general, like where some of the categories came from, whether it's home bylaws or state laws, like the patron dancing on Sundays, that it seems very.
Seems like a blue line.
It seems really like
Yeah.
outdated to me, so I don't know where, like, it was just, I'm like, this, how quaint. Like, it's very quaint. And it's like,
You mean like a moving picture show?
also quaint. Yes. I hear that
So
they have,
maybe-
I hear
maybe,
that they
yes.
have talkies now.
Yes, there's something to be said about maybe modernizing some of the language. I just like, same thing with like jukebox, like if somebody was getting a jukebox, that like, where are they getting it from? eBay, and like, that's just, and so like, how, maybe, I mean, I understand, like, I'm being, facetious here, but it's like, maybe,
But I'm curious, right? Like, I don't
maybe
know,
what it would be a little more
right,
detailed.
I don't know where these terms are coming from, if they're sort of town specific, or if there's a state law somewhere that says that we have to have.
Like
this-
coin off means what?
I got it from one of the ones that were there.
Yeah.
Different versions of the.
Like a cigarette
So
machine
where's
or
our
something.
town historian that one?
Well, we had this discussion about what the heck is a Victalar, right?
Oh, right, the
Common
Vittler.
Vic, yeah.
Yeah, Jeremy and I had a conversation about the pronunciation of that word.
Everybody says Vic.
It's apparently Vittler. And like, it looks like victuals, but it's actually Vittler, which you knew. And I'm like, that can't be right. But then I looked it up and I'm like,
Even though
oh,
it's gonna
it is
see
right.
you.
And it's-
Yeah.
Wow.
I always thought that like vittles was like a Western thing, but apparently that is like what I always thought of as victuals is apparently the correct pronunciation is vittles.
And that's where that.
I had no idea.
Because it's the edible.
Yeah, I mean,
I've been spelling that incorrectly.
it's got well, there is a variant that's vittles, like Vittles, because I think it's.
Yeah, like Western.
Yeah, but apparently like that was just a spelling of vittles, VICT,
So
I think it looks like.
That's
victuals.
fast.
I had a very smug moment where the linguist got to tell me I was wrong.
You were right, exactly. You were right. I'm like, that can't be right because it just, I just was mispronouncing it.
That's really interesting.
And no other state uses that.
Just nice.
If you look up that term, you're just gonna get Massachusetts municipality like websites about. But, so yes, I think a lot of this is rooted in Yale at some point.
Right.
Or a form at some point. So, we can, there's no vote, there's nothing. See if we have the ability to, right? If this is rooted in MGL section, whatever, that we have to look at.
But I mean, yeah, I even have a question about the category of like, sorry, I don't remember where I saw it, but they're like the patron dancing on Sunday. I mean, like, do we really need?
Dancing by entertainers for performers. Or dancing by patrons. And I would hate to have a, flash dance moment where we're talking about. Yeah, it's interesting.
We should be getting like on the Sunday license, if people really are doing any I mean, the information, right, so, right, I guess it. That's why I'm talking to them.
Yeah. But again, like I wonder where some of these.
It sounds like an old blue law.
It does, it does. So it just surprised me and it was like, anyhow, so I feel like it's kind of maybe a discussion for another day, but like, I was like seeing them in front of me like that, I'm like.
I assume when we go to OpenGov, it will have built-in modern pieces to those questions, or,
Not
Maybe not.
necessarily, because we could just make this kind of a fillable.
oh, we could,
Yeah.
we just scan it in like a film PDF.
I like how you added the, some of the details. That's gonna be helpful when we're reading the packet.
And so I feel like before with the applicant.
Yeah.
Any question?
Right, and it
Yeah.
seemed really variable how people would fill it out,
Yeah.
so. Yeah, this is, this does seem.
And the same thing at the bottom where it's just like the different departments, that would. Fire department. Restrictions or remarks that we have. That. We also agree with attestation. Workers' compensation form is required and. License, so that's from the sleeping to the sleep. So what's. Yes. Dealer license. It just shows like the main differences between one and class two, like what you need for each of them. That's for the little bit more. Well, the same amount of information. Change. Much, I just made the form.
And more consistent with other forms. Yeah, I think that's great, because I think the forms were developed at different times.
Creation, I figure the more
Mhm.
to update them
Right,
and actually give staff time.
right. And will it have like, I know, like to that point, does it say sort of the date of the form, like their version of the form? Like it's, I find it often helpful in the footnote, like, yeah.
I will add that.
Because I think that is an issue that comes up, is like, wait, is this the right version? And if it's like last updated X.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We should make sure it lives somewhere.
Yeah, this is in the SharePoint,
Yeah.
admin.
And I think OpenGov will also help with that.
Definitely.
We won't necessarily have but when you go to OpenGov and find the form that's there, that's what you do.
Right, right. Yeah.
So you can say.
So when somebody is looking for these licenses or these applications now, so are there links to the old ones on the website, or do people need to ask me for them?
Currently, they ask me for them, once they're all set, I can put them on.
It
Yeah,
strikes me
great.
that especially like the steps that are needed would be really useful, because I think we want to make it easier for people to start businesses here, and if they can just look and see what the process is, that might actually.
Building permits are online now.
Okay.
You can go fill them out and get
Great.
it started. And fill it out. And this would be an electronic routing slip. So we were talking about, pending routing slip completion.
Yeah,
We shouldn't see it until the routing, everyone checks the box online.
but I mean, I think even just like an information on the website that has the steps, the information.
Yeah, where was I talking about? We didn't have small administration.
Yeah, we were talking about, there's somebody who I want to run a business.
Right, so that would be, one of the questions I was gonna ask you was whether or not any part of this process like ever checks with the clerk to see if a business has yet been registered. Because for a small business, some of this might not matter for a small business, but Ellen has like a little page on like how to start, get registered. And I all that together. I don't know which one is required over the other, right? But tying together how to start any sort of business in Mendon, which is going to require multiple steps, not just us.
I wonder if
It's really great. Exactly what you said.
that's what I was gonna say too.
But that's also a committee we should look and need to rethink charter and things like that, because it's not active. And we, I should restart it.
This could be a great project, like just
Yeah.
an information site that brought together a way for you to get started as a business owner. And, of course, you could come in here and talk to Ellen, but there's gonna be a lot of people who would just prefer to read it and get all the paperwork done and then come in.
Especially if they're not right here in town
Right.
during the meeting.
I mean, I would like to share just a Charlton document. Their permitting process, and they have all the links into the system. Thing right on the website. It's a multi-page document, and so consolidate the information. And from there, you basically get to these assets.
Right, a landing page for the concept of business, and, it doesn't matter who that's owned by, but if they can keep maintaining their individual pages, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Well, if there's, a keyword, tag and search and everything, just to try to make it easier for people to get that info, and then once it's all.
But actually, that's something that, had, like, and made me want to work on this, because I don't know when businesses have a business certificate with Ellen or not. So on here, if you see, it says, business certificate, if you do not have one.
Right.
So we can kind of check that off before.
So like right there, that could just be a hyperlink right into the town clerks. That kind of stuff really helps people out, because then they have to put it down.
Should the town clerk be on the routing system?
Oh, you mean like down at the bottom?
Yeah, to check whether or not the business license exists.
Yes.
Probably, it's probably a good idea, because it's a reminder to the applicant that it's another step
So
that's
a
involved.
lot of the issue with what the town clerk issues and charges for is that there's not teeth to it. It's like all physicians need to register their physician business with the town clerk, and like, they don't. Happens, that's right. So if we can act,
Get a dog license.
they don't have a dog license, but like, so if we can add some kind of like secondary goal, but add some teeth to the town clerk's requirements, and that like, if you don't do this thing with the town clerk, then you don't get your necessary things from the select.
Right.
Like a bylaw or like a policy?
Well, even
Just through the procedure.
just to understand who does and who doesn't. Maybe there's no key now, but from the thing with OpenGov that I thought I see is that there's a bunch of information. But right now, it's just used in building. Other parties in the town do not have access to see or use that information. Opening that up, so you get a window into it, then we can decide, is there an action we need that need, or and just to get a window to start collecting the data would be a good step. And sharing the information, to me, I've learned a lot about the inspectional services operation labs, and pretty interesting. I think a system like that just
So when it comes to routing slips, like when it goes to department heads, it's their purview to decide, yes or no, based on whatever their expectations and rules are. But it's just what we agree on as a town for how that all gets approved and like allowed to be accessed, or like, are we required by law to enable them to fill out these types of requests? So like what Mike was saying is if a requirement was that in order for the select board to approve one of these, that our requirements that it hit Ellen's office first, is that something we are legally able to do? Because
or we depends?
Yeah, it's a little of everything.
Okay.
For the
Like
town.
Board of Health. Food establishments, right?
I think most people don't realize the vast regulatory and enforcement powers of the Board of Health.
Right. Whereas in public safety, whereas Ellen right now, I would say probably nice to have more for our information.
Agreed.
And, even in the building space, it's not the idea that you've got uncommon activity is not going to hold up the building permit, but it could hold up the certificate of occupancy. So
No other tendencies.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, it's already got more complicated than I knew it was.
The three main ones I did update. Just so you know, you're looking at what time to do.
Well, we appreciate it because as you can hear, there's definitely a lot of discussion to be had on this stuff. So this is really awesome.
And
Yeah.
this work that would have to be done anyway.
So
Yeah.
this is refreshed that together on OpenGov, and these are all living things, right? It will likely look marginally different next year as we run into something up, say, oh, we should change this, this, and this. So this is just an update to you all that we're on this sort of thing.
Into the operations space.
Just another part for the dealer license, but I feel like I think we gave them the dealer license, but then their zoning was off, so they had to go do something. Well, I feel like, with OpenGov, it would be helpful to know that like zoning signed off on it. And the other signed off, they had everything they needed before.
All right, thank you, Katie. So for our next item, number 10, which is the COA donations, if you look at page 31 of your agenda packet, you will see Mendon Senior Center donations, November 2025.
So I'm not going to read through all these. I'll read through the total. We had cash and gift card donations to the food pantry that totaled $3,858.22. There's also food item donations from the Scouts, from Blue Girls and St. Gabriel's Church, and from the Clough School, 571 different food items that we didn't quantify the dollar amount. So this is something we said this last week when the but the select board needs to accept. These are the donations to the food pantry, like I said, totaling $3,858.52, led by $1,500 from the Knights of Columbus. So thank you very much. And then a $25 donation to the COA gift account. So. As outlined in the packet and just now.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If there's none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those against?
If we build parts of this agenda, things like this, I may try to talk about having a consent agenda, please. But I still think it's worth calling out some of the larger donations to say thank you, Knights of Columbus, for your support.
All right, so number 11, fee structure in the bylaw. There was a separate email with a spreadsheet. And in that spreadsheet is a whole bunch of tabs. And as you can see, there are a lot of different fees in town.
250 of them.
Yeah. So how do we want to chop this up?
So building, so a lot of these are building, not a lot of these, the first 50 or whatever are building, which were just changed.
Right.
Board discussed it with the building commissioner and had some comparables. So we kind of move on from those. The planning board fees, the board of health fees, of which there are a number, and the parks commission fees, the water commission fees, those are all independently elected boards that set their own fees. So what's under the purview of the select and the town clerk as well. So what's under the purview of the select board here is the select board fees. conservation fees, fire department fees, treasurer collector, ZBA, that sort of thing. So we can, this was kind of an educational exercise just to say, hey, here's what so Katie surveyed everyone and said, hey, for this meeting, I need your list of fees. She went through the bylaws, because some of these are, especially with Board of Health, some of these are in regulations, not in their bylaws. And then Katie's column F, when it was last updated, is that what that is?
F is, so the Board of Health has like, I guess they're increasing their fees. So the way it's broken down is like each year it goes up a little bit.
Got it. I now see there's 2028 in there, so that doesn't make sense. Got it. So people like the town clerk would like input before the select board says, here's what we want to do with fees. But really, I would like the select board to focus on the select board fees. What I imagine we'll do, and this is what we want to have the conversation about, is we'll go out and do a quick survey, what other people in the Blackstone Valley do. If we charge 10 and everyone else charges 100, we'll come back with that. But if we charge 75 and everyone else charges 80, like, I don't know if we need to change it, sort of thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think I have that, Jeremy.
We have a survey of that, so we can superimpose, we can concatenate all of these things.
So the question on the agenda says a fee structure in bylaw. What does that mean on the agenda?
So all of these, not all of these are in the bylaws, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Do we want them in the bylaws? You want the ability to change them at the
That's my,
So some of them are gonna have to come out.
The question is what,
I think I should reference this document in the bylaw.
I'm wondering, where does the authority come from for us to charge the fees? Do we need the bylaw to be able to have the ability to levy the fees, or is it inherently part of the position as the board to be able to levy these fees? That would be the question.
agreed, like the bylaw needs to designate the authority.
Correct.
I'm talking about the ability to change the amounts. Without town meeting.
Charge a fee as doesn't.
Right. So does it have to, it doesn't have to necessarily call out the amount of the fee in the bylaw, just to give us the authority and delegate it to
Right,
us.
I'm into the authority piece, but
Yeah, right.
I would want flexibility.
Yep, of course.
Agreed.
I just, that's the big question I have is, certainly we should right size the fee, but what allows us to charge a fee at all?
Yeah, so I can find the MGL on it, but select board has the authority to set fees for the town that are not otherwise set. There's all those exemptions, the Board of Health. If it's set in a bylaw, then you can't go ahead and do it. So candidly, Katie and I haven't had a lot of conversations on this, so I think I want to make sure I understand our charge from the board. So I would, as I understand it, you would like to see fees not in the bylaws amounts, but references to specific fees in the bylaws are okay. And then it says fees as set by the select board. And then there'll be a published document. What I really want to do, in addition to OpenGov, is kind of have a list of fees on the website. So people, it is communicated and it's clear to people what fees for anything are.
I'd like to also, because I'm trying to think real hard, and I don't know that this is shown up in the budget, but it would be interesting to know how much of which can't be high, but it would be interesting to know how much of our income comes from the fees. And then like what across the board increase would even look like or matter to the town.
Yeah.
I have a question sometimes about how much time does it take to deal with some of these? Like, are the fees covering the labor costs for?
Exactly.
Because I feel like they're not.
Big question, because if you have staff that are doing things, the fees on a certain level should cover those costs. And I
Right.
think that's why it's great to do a comparison of a particularly larger towns, the more.
But also Katie should know, right, like how many hours you need to spend on each individual one of these. And we should be able to guess a kind of labor cost based on that.
Well, I think a great example is we have a conservation agent. Right, so presumably if the agent's going out to do some kind of a review or involvement, the fees should cover those costs.
Absolutely, her salary for that time.
Right.
But you know, you look at these and it's like, if it's alcohol, then it's $1,000, and if it's anything else, it's, you know, $25.
25,
Or
right.
essentially. it's-
Including the Sunday dancing by patrons after 1 PM.
By patrons,
Right. Dancing by patrons is different than dancing
That has to be.
by the,
By entertainment,
Entertainment.
yes.
Yes, I get it.
and you know, we do hundreds of those a month, so.
Well, so I,
No, yard sale, I didn't know you had to get.
So.
you don't anymore.
You don't, it's just been in our facts. You don't.
So, like, Right, it's on, it's one of our licenses though, right?
It is, and, well, I mean, I guess I would,
but we eliminated that. It used, the reason for it was it created such a traffic issue
Yeah,
that the public safety wanted to know when and where, so they could plan for it.
right.
And then
Now with the
stopped being-
progressive yard
now
sales,
Right,
yeah,
but now has become,
less of an issue.
right.
So licensing permits made up about $400,000 of revenue for the town in fiscal '25.
Significant.
Well, that's
But that's
and
across.
Which are
Right.
building permits. So you
Right.
say, what do our fees as opposed to like the time invested into it? So they skew wildly, right? Because building permits are based upon value and you have a huge project and it doesn't take twice as much staff time to.
Right. To do $1 million project versus a $500,000 project. Okay.
Exactly. Yep. So frustratingly, the answer is it depends. But the same thing with a common vic license, right? It's $25 to apply. And it takes, you know, a few minutes for Katie to like.
Right, but is the reasoning behind signing up for a common vic so that we know? Like, is that the main reason? So you want to keep the barrier to entry low, right? Is that the point?
We definitely want the barrier to entry low, yeah, and it's not a big lift administratively, so there's not like a justification.
So covering like 1 hour of her time essentially.
Can I just have a suggestion, because I just recently finished the licensing? Maybe I see the Board of Health has late fees for their renewals. Would suggest that, because I have to I have to keep going back to the same.
Well, and that's where it takes you more time.
That takes more time than the
That's
other.
what-
So, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I like that idea.
1,000% increase if you're in Dayton.
Just to have
We
something.
would stop some of the late fees.
It would.
Mhm.
It would be like $50.
Yeah, because I think, you've had to chase down some people,
Yeah.
like,
I did.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
blocking the
yeah.
approval is essentially the power we have, right? Or like, you know, we can mention to the Board of Health, they, you know, that kind of stuff. There's things that we can do to.
Well, they, I think there are a lot of people that fill out the paperwork with the Board of Health, but then they don't know that they have to do a common vic. That's how I found like the Serenity and the large bookstore food permits, and that's where I reached out to them. So
Can
they,
OpenGov like remind these people, like in all that, is there like a reminder workflow or a notification workflow?
it's really nice.
Don't have time together.
Yeah, you could, I mean, if
If
Board of
you
Health
allow
is doing
it.
something, you could set it up so that there'd be notification, you know, because it does a lot of email prompting.
Yeah.
So Katie could be on the response of any Board of Health food.
Right, but what Brendan just said is like, if they signed up for a Board of Health and they got a notification that the dependency was a select board permit, you know, then they would know right away that there was that dependency. And then once they were signed up, then we could remind them automatically every year, especially about, you know, the fee for not signing up.
I think has a lot of flexibility to share information both to the applicant and to the internal department heads.
Yeah, that's all gonna be very useful stuff.
And a lot of the forms for the departments are the same. So the Board of Health is asking for like the attestation and the workers' compensation affidavit. So I see where like people might think, oh, I've already done this.
Right, you don't wanna put it in twice, you can just copy the information essentially.
Yeah.
Or reference it.
Or link to it if they're,
Mhm.
you know, scanning in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Document, just upload a document.
Right.
All right, so we did a bunch of talking there.
So my takeaways from that are, We're going to see what's in the bylaw, suggest changes to take any dollar value references out of bylaws and just say per select board vote or per select board, setting or whatever. And then take pains to publish all of the fees on our website, which I think is a good step anyway. And make sure we have a correct understanding of authority, which I think I do, but we'll get confirmation on is a vote sufficient.
Then maybe turning it into an annual, probably part of our select board process, turning it into some sort of fee review process where we address it somehow
It
once
should
a
be,
year.
yeah, it should be
every 2
refreshed.
years.
And no yard sale fee.
Right, and remove the yard sale fees. If that exists somewhere in our doc, because it does somewhere, because we pulled it in here, right? And so,
Just need to get removed.
and then a weekday license, you have to have a license to be a weekday.
Strong, as opposed to a strong day.
Oh, dad jokes abound. We must be near the end of the agenda.
That weekday entertainment. Weekend entertainment.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Katie, for, going out and scraping all this from the departments. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
that's a
It's really,
monumental
yeah.
First time I've seen
Good
it.
to see all this.
So. All right, number 12, town administrator bylaw review / vote. So the town administrator bylaw was shared in October, and we talked about it once and referenced it a bunch of times afterwards. So anybody want to start off with feedback on the town administrator bylaw?
My comments, I put on track changes and resubmitted, so should be in there.
October 28th.
Yeah, I read yours, but not recently. So I'm pulling it back. So some of it was clarity stuff. So there's a little bit of redundancy in there that we need to come up with, a little bit of numbering that makes sure we're clear. So one of the comments that we'll start, section 4A, subsection I, about town administrator having appointment authority, but then a 15-day review for select board to say, to be able to reject an appointment. So appointment authority is a big one. So it's not like a massive operational headache, but it's one that's department heads are frustrated by sometimes. Like I'm hiring an administrative assistant, a highway laborer, whatever, and like I need to wait a week and a half to be able to get them to select board, and then you come here, like, can't you just hire somebody? So what this section said was no appointment of a town administrator shall take effect within 15 days of notice. The board may approve or disapprove within 15 days. So essentially I can appoint someone and then the board gets 15 days to say kind of yay or nay.
Would it be possible to just tie that to the next meeting? The next select board meeting instead of a 14 days. So then like the TA notifies us they've appointed by for the next meeting as a part of the agenda. And it's just a notification.
And my other concern is that I think there are some positions where, we have the authority, there's this delegating our authority to you to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you have the authority for every position.
Right.
So yeah, so the way this is written here, it is delegating it to me with like veto power for the board for everything. So one thing that I had in my, that I talked about before was, that I would be, it says here, be the hiring authority for all appointed employees under the jurisdiction of the board. You can put a caveat there, except the police chief and fire chief or something like that. If you wanted positions that would just be board approved.
Well, my question is, are we even allowed to delegate that authority in some cases? And is it maybe better to do it the way that we agreed with the call firefighters where you do it, but then we have to ultimately approve it, right?
So this language is directly from the special act approved by the legislature for the Upton town manager, which is where 90% of this came, 95% of this came from. So you're certainly allowed to, whether you
But
want.
the difference is that's a town manager, whereas you're a town administrator.
Yeah, that distinction used to have a lot more difference. And now the difference isn't style only, in that there are fully empowered town administrators that are still called town administrators, but have a bylaw allowing it. Right?
I thought the difference was the charter. That's not that's not
Yeah,
true.
so Upton doesn't have a charter. They just got this special act that creates the.
Well, it
Office of
was
the Town
the legislature that did the special act.
Yeah.
So that's the same authority as a charter. I mean, the point is, it was either the townspeople approve it or the legislature approves it for the town.
Yeah, and I mean, the bylaw would have a similar weight, right? Because folks have to approve the bylaw change at town meeting.
Right.
Bylaw creation, not even change.
My thinking on that is, maybe to me, it's more the level we're delegating to as the elected officials. I don't have an issue with, it's probably like department head and above probably should not be delegated to the TA because we're elected to do that. Heavy equipment operators, admins, things like that, the operational staff, I have no issue with. But
Seasonal plow drivers.
yeah, I just think
You know,
that,
operational.
people kind of who are looking at the select board saying, no, I'm looking for you to make a decision,
Right.
So I think maybe I qualified a little bit, I think.
So would you like, so I guess, I wouldn't want to say something as soft as department head. I would want to say, select board retains the appointing authority for the following positions and name.
That would be the way, that would be my suggestion, the way to do it. Is let's take
Right.
those, I don't want to say important, everybody's important, but sensitive positions.
Leadership, like,
And be explicit about it, and when we have a position that we need to be
Right.
explicit about, we go do it.
Right, whether it's in that.
So it's never
category.
a question.
Right.
I think some of those positions should be much more formal, not more formal, but more open visual search.
Right.
Those jobs we need to do a search for versus just advertising.
Posting, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
okay, I'll get a list. That's a really reasonable
The other,
middle ground between what we have now.
one of the comments I had about the 14 days or 15 days. I think it needs to be specified whether or not a tacit approval is given if no action is taken versus, I think I'd like it.
Yeah, that's what I thought within the 15 days would be.
Yeah, I
Right.
think I'd like it specified, like if the board doesn't take any.
My only concern about that is that this on again, off again, where, you conditionally appointed somebody in the 15 days, we say, nope. I don't.
Yeah.
How do you put the genie back in the bottle?
That's why I was saying if you tie it to the next time the board meets.
Yeah.
And there's an automatic agenda item to discuss, there is no back and forth. And
Right.
either that person doesn't get appointed right then, or the
And
appointment.
there's also, I
continues.
think there's also a great many, I think we listed an exception of the ones that we want to retain authority for.
No,
that we
there.
need approval. And I mean, if you,
Yes, that's exactly what I was gonna say. If we're going with exempting these 15, 20, 15, 17 positions that are department head, whatever they are, then I would say take out this entirety of the 15-day thing.
Yeah,
because Do
Right,
you really wanna?
right, well, because I think,
Heavy equipment operator?
I think there's a probationary period for
Yeah,
most of
6
these
months,
jobs anyhow, so
I was.
the chances are that we're not gonna be the ones who have the concerns about it, right? It'll be their.
Yeah, so here's the concern I have is that right now Jeremy will mention these things to me as the chair when we meet, and I'll give an opinion or not. But you're not required to do that, and it's nice that you do that and you're keeping me informed. But the next TA doesn't have to do that. So I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter. We've delegated the authority, and therefore I should trust you to execute that
Take-
authority.
I think you've come up with a list of those exempted positions that we
Right.
want to retain the authority.
Yeah.
Particularly I'm thinking law enforcement, because because they're empowered to enforce the laws against the citizen, for the citizens. And then
If you want,
come up with a more.
So
How about you report to the next board meeting, any new appointments that you have made, or that is a T, the
Right,
TA
it should just be in the TA administrative report.
Right, but just put it in
We
there
can
to say,
specify.
just say,
so when we say rank and file, you all say rank and file in terms of non-department head staff. So the way I'm viewing this now is take out the 15-day thing and instead explicitly say TA has the appointing authority except for conservation agent, town planner, police chief, fire chief, the department heads. And then things like library, parks, board of health, that's not within your purview. Someone else appoints that anyway. Do you want patrol officers and firefighters included in what the TA can appoint, or does the board want to be able to appoint police officers and firefighters?
I think the board should appoint the police officers
Why not the firefighters?
because of the mission, the different missions of the two groups.
I was okay with the TA and chief of police appointing police officers, and the fire chief appointing with the TA.
I think that if you're gonna be in a leadership role in the police department, I can understand wanting to contribute to that, but a patrol person, this recently came up where we, the chief wanted somebody on, right? We had to do kind of not an emergency
Right.
meeting, but a quicker meeting.
Right.
Because, we needed coverage and they had to wait a couple of weeks to do that. That's tough on a month where there's a 5-week month, right? It could be 2 or 3 weeks.
Do we have the same promotions? We really don't, do we?
Yeah, I was recently told a story about someone who was promoted to lieutenant and there was a contentious select board vote when it was still 3. So I believe so.
Say that again?
So I was recently told a story that when someone was promoted to lieutenant, that there was a contentious select board, a non-unanimous select board vote to do that.
Yes.
So
Mike remembers.
So I believe, it hasn't happened when I'm here and I haven't done any research into it, but that when someone moves from a union position to a non-union position, from a sergeant to a lieutenant or a firefighter to a lieutenant, the board then would have to appoint them to that new position.
Actually, that makes sense.
That does make sense.
To me, in my old world, it was going, it's sort of between non-exempt and exempt position to some extent. Like in this place, I would think we should probably have some say in the exempt positions. Non-exempt is more, would be the.
That's a great categorization, because I think, right,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have any operational salaried employees.
You never know.
I guess you're right. I'm saying that now. We don't have that now. But I think, sure. So, yeah, exempt and non-exempt employees is a great splitting line for what should be in this purview and us notified versus us deciding.
All I'm kind of saying here is that when it comes to law enforcement, they enforce the laws, for and potentially against the citizens. And I think that position has a unique set of requirements or responsibilities. And that's why I think it should continue to be brought before the board. If you want to include firefighters too. But I don't think it's the same. But that's just my 2 cents. I'm only 1 of 5, so.
Yeah, enforcing the law. But like in what instance would the chief want to promote, right? I guess this chief in this time, we don't know this, but like in the role playing, it's like, when do we sit down here and go against the chief's recommendation? It's a hard scenario to imagine. So,
I think it's also good public relations too, to have the police officers are going to be interfacing with the public, to be in this public and be introduced.
right, I do like the pomp and circumstance of them coming and
Yeah.
But so much not
Sorry.
So I just was wondering about consulting the chiefs about this question. I mean, because it is sometimes somewhat ceremonial to have them come in. Often they bring in families. And so like the intention wouldn't be to take away that.
And we can still do that, right? We can say the announcement here.
But they might be on the job for 2 weeks before they have a chance to come. Right, so ceremony, it's like being the king of England ceremony.
Without diminishing your current role in.
If you have to precursor.
In my experience, which is none. I know. It's not a very critical interview once it gets to the select board stage.
That's interesting.
That we've already had multiple rounds with the department head, with HR, in some instances with me, who are all people that this board has appointed to execute and trust their judgment and all that sort of stuff. And then those folks bring someone here, and it's not really a grilling of.
Nope.
No.
Congratulations.
Not usually.
Not usually.
It's not
That's what I said in my experience.
But I think the other thing to consider is as the process works today, it's not as the
Yep.
process has always worked. In terms of the, interviews and levels and incorporating multiple voices, that's much, I think it's different now than it has been in the past.
So the select board vote which predated me to have the town administrator appoint call firefighters was the town administrator upon recommendation of the fire chief. So it's not, I don't get to say to the fire chief, I want you, this person is now a call firefighter, deal with it. So perhaps we can craft language around that too, that police and firefighters are upon the recommendation of or even any department upon the recommendation of the department.
As I said, I'm just throwing out my.
Yeah, I really want to consider that. It's not something I considered before. I want to kind of go back and think about it. I understand what you're saying. It does make sense.
I would be interested in getting input from the chiefs on.
Yeah,
that
I agree.
Great. So let me draft up some new language on that. I'll circulate to the chiefs and I'll get their opinion circulated to you.
Yeah, it's interesting to put yourself outside of the scenario and just think about 5-10 years from now,
Yeah, exactly.
how this reads.
You'd be able to put a recommendation together of other positions you think, based on what you heard, we would continue to appoint versus the TA.
Yeah, I think that was pretty clear.
Yeah.
Are there any more segments that you want to specifically discuss?
That was Brendan's comments, Mike's comments. There was something on, for some reason, you're listed in the directory as Michael Goddard and you're listed in the directory as Mike Moroli. So when I go to look for you, I have to search.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, my mother named me Michael. She used to always remind me of that. Big fan of Mike.
And whatever my mother said, Michael, that wasn't a good day.
For whatever reason, my wife gave her cat a middle name and my toddler has taken to calling the cat by first and middle name.
Oh, wow.
So one of Michael Goddard's comments was that about contract execution for why with the $50,000 threshold. So right now in procurement, we've got a $10,000 threshold that we need to go out and get quotes for. And we do a lot of stuff that is hovering in the $10,000 range. $50,000, depending on what type of service we're requiring, but most require some sort of advertisement, and whether it's an RFP, RFQ, or then a sealed bid. $50,000 intense and labored of a procurement process. So having me or having the town administrator being the one who gets to sign contracts above $50,000 actually wouldn't expedite the process much, because there's at least a 2-week advertising and stuff like that, and we could come to the board with it anyway. And really, I wanted a number that I could easily remember, like what's the threshold, and one that's pegged to something that already triggers something for me. Made a lot of sense. We don't do a lot of stuff that's greater than $50,000. And the stuff that is greater than $50,000 is usually a lot more than that.
Well, between 10 and 50.
Yeah, there's
No.
a handful.
Funny how all the bids come in at.
$9,900. There's a little truth to that.
Yeah, I guess like paving projects and stuff like the parking lot, like
So-
that was
so-
probably in between there.
Paving, it's a little bit different because we do a yearly bid for that. So we go out,
Even the special projects like the library.
so not that one, no, but the road. So the library was like 70 something, 77 or something. 71, whatever it was. So for the street paving, we go out and say, we think we're gonna spend this much on street paving, how much would it be per unit? And then we just use that vendor over and over again. We don't bid, Thayer and Gasco and, whatever. We just
Okay.
bid it at the front end. So that's where the $50,000 cap came from. If the select board is more comfortable with the $10,000 cap, it would just.
I'm thinking higher.
So I will say the Municipal Empowerment Act, which is pending, takes that $10,000 cap as a procurement threshold and raises it to $100,000. So it's in committee now.
Goes from 10 all the way to 100.
But does it change those underlying triggers that you were talking about?
So right now, if it's 10,000, if it's expected to be 10,000 or more, you need to, over 10 but less than 50, you need to go get 3 written quotes from folks who customarily provide the good or service. It raises that $10,000 cap to $100,000. So anything under
Or
100,
that?
Anything under 100, you can just do verbals.
I could just say, we're issuing this $90,000 contract. Yep.
Oh, really?
Which is.
That would really speed things up.
Which is currently the law for school districts. So it would just apply the school district approach to municipalities. And so this is in the Municipal Empowerment Act, which the MMA thinks will be referred out of committee in the spring. It's still in committee. It's not gotten out of committee at last session and maybe the session
They
before.
keep advertising it like it's gonna get approved.
So, I mean, there's some controversial things in there about like local revenue raising authority and lots of folks don't.
So if that were to pass, would you change the 50?
Yeah, can this be linked in some way to states?
To municipal power, municipal
Or to the
empowerment.
state-
Yeah, so,
State law.
Yeah,
It certainly can.
I mean, because like,
Wouldn't
so
it
what
have
is
to
it?
Well, if it were 50 and it got raised to 100, yeah, it seems like it would have to be.
Well, there's two different
Two different things.
things. Right now, 50 is the threshold for bids.
Right.
100,000 would be the threshold for quotes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's an exponential
Which would
increase.
be, I don't think your town administrator, me or anyone else should be able to issue a $90,000 contract without competitively procuring it or having it work.
This is more of a curious, this is the 4 I gave you, that's the least important one. I'm okay with 50.
It's not the one that had a question mark in it, so I thought I wanted to at least bring it up. So I thought 50 was the right number and that it struck the right balance between it covers the stuff we do with a lot of regularity, but it doesn't get to the more transformative and bigger investment.
This is gonna be in our bylaws. So this means that like in 10 years, somebody's gonna be like 50,000, what were they thinking?
You
I
know,
don't
that's
know.
what the cost.
I was gonna say, that's our cleaning contract.
Right. And then, I mean, then the thing is that-
$50,000 coin to get your coat.
I guess just because it's in the bylaw and there's so many processes, like there's so many steps to changing it, that's my concern is it's.
You want to index it to something.
It doesn't seem indexable, especially if they're gonna exponentially increase like that.
And you also lose control over it.
Yeah, if it's indexed. So that's why,
Yeah, how hard would, I mean, you think about it, I mean, I understand, I agree, but it's also, okay, the reality of life is inflation X, Y, and Z are, the majority of our contracts are between 50 and 100, have exceeded 50,000. Therefore, we want to change that language in the bylaw. I think that's.
I think that's a pretty easy sell to town meeting
Yeah.
today.
Right.
$50,000 10 years ago, it should now be 75, or now be 100, folks.
Yeah.
Okay. Some of the other comments, reference to a balanced budget. Says the TA is responsible for presenting a balanced budget to select board. So whether we want to be that or presenting how much deliberative authority we want to have after that.
I mean,
Well, I
why
think,
would you present an unbalanced? budget?
right.
My concern
Well,
is to do with
Yeah.
a balanced budget for those departments under the select board purview.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
It would be for everybody.
I just think you get it.
To be fair, Mike's comments, I feel like it should be a balanced budget for everybody. Yeah.
Okay,
So not just truncating it to the,
that's fair.
because even though the Board of Health gets to present their own budget, like what I present to you should be
Right.
balanced in its whole.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
Because don't we always, I mean, we always have that article in the warrant that everything has to be balanced.
Yeah. And we would be breaking our own law to present.
So what
them.
you're saying is, well, versus that, the thought is that rather than giving it to us to ultimately balance it, we're putting in here that you're gonna make sure it's balanced before you give it.
I'm gonna bring it balanced, but, and then,
Recommendations.
yeah, and then you can say, I
We
don't
don't
think
agree.
we should be adding 6 staff to your office.
Right, well, I don't think you should procure that $90,000 SUV to yourself.
Yeah.
To me, it's just clarification, what's the specificity what you already did.
Yeah, it's fine, so,
And then about, another comment about the specificity on what the screening committee looks like and is, and leave that more towards what the select board at the time wants to do.
What do you want to screen?
Yeah, we had lots.
I've done it both ways, and I think should be the discretion of the board to either do a screening committee or not do it.
Yeah, I agree. It should be an in the moment decision.
And then kind of pulling the sole responsibility on grants out of the TA role. I didn't go and read section 5, so I'll do that again. But based on the comments I've gotten in this conversation, I think I have some substantial edits to make, and I'll recirculate that to you all.
And the grant one was focused on management and oversight, not necessarily execution of every grant. You know, but I think the management and the oversight is important because I think getting control of it for the town has to be in.
No, somebody has to be ultimately responsible.
Yeah, that's a big gap we have right now.
It's like a director of operations type of gap.
This is for TA.
Certainly is. All right, so that's what I got there.
Then I had some nitpicky formatting things.
Yeah, I didn't go through all those, but yes.
I acknowledge your nitpicking for me.
I have friends who, when they say that, say, I'm picking nits here, rather than say nitpicking. I just really like that phrase.
Middles.
Yeah.
All right, do we have anything else additional to talk about for 12A?
Once I bring this back to I'll bring it back one more time, and then I'll give it to the general bylaw review committee on those. And I've got 3 or 4 other things with them that are not
Fun conversations?
not nitpicking, but small revisions. Things like, right now, exactly the thing you're talking about with the $50,000. Right now, anything that a department head wants to surplus that had a original purchase value of $50 or more, the select board needs to declare surplus. So I want to raise that to like 1,000.
This was $51.
And because it's not replacement cost, it's not current value, it's original.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So
and we do have a surplus, because I think there's another one around somewhere.
Yeah,
So yeah, raising that to $1,000. It's self-substitute.
right, like an ambulance that we bought, 40 years ago that cost $3,000.
Or it's given to us, and it took Katie 6 months to try to get the title to. All right, but no, that's all in 12A.
All right, 13, the good one, the good and long one, license renewals. All right, so this is broken down into multiple, 2 different sections essentially, like the renewals, and then we'll talk about new common vics at the end. All right, so we do need to read each, do we need to read just the names of the?
Yeah, so the type of license, so wine and mall on premise license for, those 2.
ATLK, LLC, DBA, LXB, so, okay. So, want to bang through them?
Just bang through them. I move to approve the wine and malt general on premises license for ATLK LLC does business as Deluxe Pizza, and MGK Mendon Incorporated does business as Save On.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against?
I move to approve the all alcohol package store liquor license for Srini Sang Corp. does business as Liquor World, and Lab Inc. does business as Mendon Wine and Spirits.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against?
I move to approve the wine and malt package store liquor license for MGK Mendon Incorporated, does business as Savon.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those against?
All right, I move to approve the all alcohol general on-premise liquor license for Miss Mendon Diner 1, PJ's at Miss Mendon Diner. Q&T Restaurant LLC does business as Alicante Mediterranean Grill Restaurant and Lounge. M Lick Inc. does business as Lowell's Restaurant. GV Mendon Management LLC. Havco 2 Incorporated does business as Greenhouse Wood Fired Pub. New England Steak and Seafood Incorporated does business as New England Steak and Seafood. Roy Ventures Corp. does business as the England Sports Pub and the Outer Limits. Showtime Entertainment, Willowbrook Restaurant LLC does business as Willowbrook Restaurants. Southwick Wild Animal Farm Incorporated does business as Southwick.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those against?
I move to approve the Farmer Wine and Farmer Brewery wine permit for Susan Vanderwalk, does business as Vanderwalk Farm Winery.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain. Next.
All right. So one, before I read this, right, I think the new ones are they mixed in here?
No.
Okay, they're not.
No, they're all the way down.
Okay, cool. I move to approve the common vic licenses for George's Surf and Turf. Susan Vanderwalk does business as Vanderwalk Farms, Sunny Farms, Dunkin' Donuts. Mark number 3 does business as A&D Golden Corporation. CNL Pizza does business as known as Pizza. Imperial Gas LLC, Buff School, Misco Hill Elementary, Miss Mendon, Miss Mendon Twin Drive-In, Southwick Wild Animal Farm Incorporated does business as Southwick Zoo. Shrina Sang Corp. does business as Liquor World, Mendon Wine and Spirits. Q&T Restaurant LLC does business as Alicante Mediterranean Grill Restaurant and Lounge. Enwick does business as Lowell's. ANZ Golden Corporation. GV Mendon Management LLC. Havco 2 Incorporated does business as Greenhouse Wood Fired Pub. New England Steakhouse Incorporated does business as New England Steak and Seafood. The End Zone, Willowbrook Rest, ATLK Deluxe Pizza.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, question. We're referring to the end zone as the end zone in this, but we had Roy Ventures and a much longer name under the
Roy Ventures Corp. DBA, the end.
So do we need the full name or is that proper?
So the ones for the liquor license, I put it exactly as it is on the liquor license. And then the ones for the other applications, I put it what they wrote on their application.
Do we know if we have to, how specific we need to be?
I think, and I think I
Those are on local licenses, so I
Common
assume.
Vic's a local licensing authority, so I think you have the discretion to know what they're talking about, whereas the other ones are ABCC, where it needs to match their business certificate.
Right.
And in this case, I think it's clear because
Yeah,
there isn't
they're
another
advertised.
business that is.
Yeah.
Has a similar name.
Right.
It's a good question, though.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against?
All right, I move to approve the Class 1 dealer license for Bob's Marine Service. Imperial Chrysler Dodge Jeep does business as Imperial Sprinter. Imperial Chrysler Dodge Jeep Corporation. Meehan Automobiles Incorporated does business as Imperial Chevrolet. Imperial Ford Corporation and East Acres Recreational Vehicle.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those against? Class 2.
I move to approve the Class 2 dealer licenses for Jam Shack LLC does business as Forefront Certified Sales Incorporated. Copart of Connecticut Incorporated does business as Copart. Rich Arsenal does business as Richie's Driveway. Sutfall Auto Sales Incorporated. Native Automotive LLC. Distinctive Rides Incorporated and JNG Motors.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those against? Adults?
I move to approve the adult entertainment license for George Fenari Trust does business as Showtime Entertainment.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against?
Move to approve the Entertainment Monday through Saturday license for Enlick does business as Lowell's, Miss Mendon, Alicante, Enlick, Grandview, Haverty 2, New England Steakhouse, The End Zone, and Susan Vandermark does business as Vandermark Farms.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against?
I move to approve the Sunday entertainment does business as Lowell's, Grandview, Haverty 2, New England Steakhouse, The End Zone, and George Fenari Trust does business as Showtime Entertainment.
Second.
Any discussion?
So Vandervalk doesn't do Sunday entertainment?
That's what it's gonna.
I was also thinking that same
Yeah.
thing.
You just follow all this.
Yeah, can we follow up with Vandervalk? and
Well,
see
they
if
don't do entertainment on Sundays. Isn't that what they said? All they were doing is planning to do it on Saturdays.
Friday.
They're
Right,
not open on Saturdays.
Is it just Fridays because it closes?
but yeah, I mean,
We'll just confirm.
we should
Yeah.
confirm.
Yeah.
And they can come back in January if that's the case, or whatever, just want to make sure.
Okay. All those in favor? All those against?
And I move to approve the Sunday entertainment license for the state of Massachusetts for Enlick, does business as Lowell's, Grandview, Haverty 2, New England Steakhouse, The End Zone, and George Fenari Trust does business as Showtime Entertainment.
Is this the same list?
State.
It's one's for the state, one's for our town.
Yeah.
Second.
I thought we could do it in one vote.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, maybe not there, but I know we did the adult entertainment license and then we did the Saturday license, the Sunday, and Funari is on there for the Sunday licenses, but not on the Saturday license.
They're on this motion to approve a general adult entertainment license.
Yeah, I
Does
know,
that cover it?
But one of my questions with them, why do they need to be on the Sunday?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either.
That's all I'm asking.
Okay,
All right, we'll
For
follow.
the
up
same
on that.
reason.
No,
Yeah,
good
we'll
question.
clarify
I didn't catch that.
The reason why I think it is we don't have an adult entertainment application. I think that was made for them since they were like the first.
Then how did they get on the Sunday entertainment?
Because they have entertainment on they have entertainment on Sunday, but the state doesn't charge different for adult entertainment versus.
and the state requires us to file a separate Sunday.
Well, you're gonna find out anyways. Okay.
Okay.
I don't want to make a mistake.
Yep, I get it. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
That's a lot of.
All right, thank you, Brendan. And that hits everything for number 13, and then oh shoot, sorry. So we just finished discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Now you know how my brain works, by the way. So number 14 is new common vic. Sorry, I'm getting to my agenda. New common vic licenses, and so there were 3. And Katie, do you want to tell us how you came about these?
So I knew certain businesses didn't have them, so I reached out to the Board of Health and asked who had a food permit. So anybody in the town who had a food permit that would fall under the common vic, I let them know that they should have one with the select board, like a license with the select board, so they filled out the document.
Good.
Right, so there are 3. Can we do them all at the same time? We have to do them
No,
separately.
just the same
All right,
way.
so a motion to hit all 3. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the common vic license for Serenity Tea House, Bethany Community Church, doing business Blessing Barn Bookstore and Showtime Entertainment.
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, sorry, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Thank you, doing our civic duty of our annual license renewals, and thank you to everybody who does business in town. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate you being on time. So that's it for general business. You want to do the town administrator report?
Yeah, sure. I've got a number of things here, so I'll try to just do the highlights on them. Department head meeting last week kicked off budget discussions, so those documents go out to department heads tomorrow. I think the Board of Health does a really nice job with their, I don't expect everybody to be bound, but with their breakdown of what specific line items are and what makes up that. When we say $6,000 for contract services, like what the heck is that? So I've tasked department heads with giving a little bit of that narrative on the things that actually drive their budget. That'll help move the conversation along a little bit more. And then we'll have very explicit call outs onto new things. If they want something new, we're going to have a more built out. I would say the fire department did that really well last year. So I've used that as an example to push out to everybody else. Tomorrow, town hall will be closed from 12 to 1:30. We are doing employee holiday staff appreciation party. Everyone who attended has chipped in to pay for the catering. I'm very sensitive about legitimate taxpayer interest in just providing food for staff for holiday stuff. So we're going to do a Yankee swap and have a little team building. And I think it'll be really nice. And then we've got the town-wide holiday party on Friday that we mentioned earlier. I have to check the specifics on some union contracts, but some of them have half days for the day before Christmas. So we'll have holiday hours akin to Thanksgiving, where town hall and associated offices close early on the 24th. Make sure that's
Extremely reasonable.
noted and put out to everybody. We'll have, so on the 1/7 agenda, there's a couple of things on here that I'll say we will do in January, because it's tradition to just say that's an after Christmas problem for some. But on the 1/7 agenda, we've got 3 agreed to at the table MOAs for successor contracts for our union. So 3 out of 4 are done. Really reasonable terms. So police, fire, and
Nice job.
thanks. So Joe's on, he did a lot of work too. Having the organization of a labor attorney keep all the proposals, all the responses, all the status, the tentative agreement logs. It really it moves things along really well. Starting on annual town report. So Katie and I are going to meet on that about getting stuff out to folks, having department heads respond to us by the middle of January that says, here's my submission for the annual town report. One of my goals is to standardize it a little bit more. It was my first time doing it last year, and I got like 35 different fonts and font sizes, and it was a lot.
I mean, Times New Roman.
And spacing and double spaces after periods, which people hate when I call them out because they're like, I learned to type on a typewriter, that kind of stuff. So we're trying to standardize a little bit because it drove me nuts.
As long as it's in MLA format.
So, like everything else, like the budget document like this, we're not going to get fully there, but personnel policy, after comments here, I'm going to send it around tomorrow, work with Jen a little bit more on that. So we'll get we'll get staff feedback on that, like we talked about at the last meeting. We're starting some work on our town newsletter that will go out in February. So we're going to do some, FAQ with the town treasurer. I think I talked to you about this, but
You didn't, but I know you're going to ask me to do a little select chair corner or something of the sort. Yeah,
exactly that.
No problem.
And then I'll do something too. And then Jen, I talked to her today on my way here. We're going to highlight our health agent as we're going to each quarter, we're going to spotlight somebody, say, what does this thing do? Who is this person who does it? So we're going to highlight Colleen Strapponi as our health agent and say, what does a health agent do?
Yep, I talked to her today too, Jeremy. She was very excited to help.
I find both her role and her interesting. So I think it'll be great. I think people generally know what tax collector does, but I don't think people really know what a health agent does. So I think that's a good one to start on. And then we'll do some board department highlights, it'll grow and change and stuff, but we'll do important highlights. We'll do that contact information, that kind of stuff. So once the first one goes out, get some feedback, but I think I'm excited about it. It'll be a good project. And reading the latest newspaper, which is 85% sponsored content. We need to be able to control the narrative a little bit on what's going on. brought this up a while ago and said we need to make a decision by October, and then we just haven't done anything. Route 16 project with the Civil War monument, we just haven't gotten the engineer's report from DOT. So we don't, about whether it can stay there or we have to move it or how. So we're waiting on the engineer to bring something back. So I just didn't want that to linger. I said we had to take action and we didn't because we're still waiting on DOT to give us a final answer on that. The Cannabis Control Commission recently came out with updated regulations on social consumption sites. Katie was on a call this morning about it. So more to learn on our end and gauge local interest in this before we do any sort of local licensing authority questions on it. But generally, what will be regulated, Kate, jump in when I mess this up, but what will be regulated, it could either be attached to a current dispensary or it could be a standalone facility. Local licensing authority have the ability to say whether it can be inside, outside, both. There are strict regulations on what ventilation and all that looks like inside. I don't know a ton about it right now, so that's why it's not an agenda item. It's just get it on your purview. This will be coming. We haven't talked to any of the retail establishments in town to see if they have any interest in adding on a social consumption site as part of their model. But it's something that's in the offing. So as we learn more about it, we get interested. 106 Millville has been condemned by the Board of Health. All of the animals are out. The occupants are not staying there. They did transfer some animals to Canada. We've been in contact with the property owner and their attorney, Attorney Horn, about enforcing the no occupancy sort of thing. Police have been made aware. So I talked to the Board of Health earlier today. Not sure where they're staying, but their animals are not there. People are not there. There are still, so all the animals are in custody of the MSPCA, except for 4 or 6 of the dogs, I forget, that are in custody of the Blackstone Valley shelter, dog shelter. So I think we have closed that chapter. I asked Board of Health, they had a court date this week and it's been continued. And I said, can they leave the country with a pending court date and charges being filed? Is that something you can do? And they go, well, they did once. So apparently that's that. So that's all I know about that. Trying to schedule budget meetings for FinCom, get on their schedule. So I'm going to meet with this year, Mike Prager, one-on-one. Historically, FinCom has met on Mondays. They would like the select board to come to one of their Monday meetings to kick it off. After. So look at your calendars for the first week of February. They're asking select board to come on 2/2 that Monday, and then have a meeting on 2/4 as well.
When it comes to future Mondays, I know the school district has their budget hearing on Monday, so I don't know what it is, but it would be good to have that like on our radar as well.
March is here.
Might be March.
Still something good for us to know about.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a budget subcommittee meeting tomorrow that I am hopeful to attend. Okay, left the more news in. So we certified our tax rate and we left more levy on the table than I'm comfortable with. So we did a kind of after action with the accountant and the assessor and myself, like what happened here. So we had more new growth than initially thought. And what I should have done was request to appropriate more of that at special town meeting. And as a result, we had levy capacity that we didn't use. And I told the accountant to make sure we ratchet local receipts down to a point where we leave the minimum table. And number of reasons that didn't happen fully. So we left about $80,000 worth of levy untaxed, which is about 0.4% of our total levy, which is 10 times more than we did last year, and kind of a level I find unacceptable based upon my explicit instruction to not do that.
How does that carry?
So it doesn't change our levy limit for next year. We can just raise that next year. So what it does is we still have balanced budget and all
You
that
just lost the ability, you just lost that
for this year.
for this.
We can raise that 80 plus 2.5% next year. It's not gone forever. Why? So it frustrates me, one, because I kind of wasn't elbows deep in the process. I don't have a ton of interest and have an official role in the tax recap process, but like I coordinate it all. So I wasn't close enough to it to make sure this didn't happen. So on me, we'll make sure that doesn't happen next year. What frustrates me from a taxpayer experience process, well, one, folks' tax bills in the aggregate are going to be $80,000 lower this year. So that's a savings to the taxpayer while we still get a balanced budget. But what that means is quarter one and quarter two tax bills for fiscal 27, based upon what you paid in fiscal 26, plus 2.5%, because they're estimates. And then quarters 3 and quarters 4 are actuals, where we have our tax rate set. And then we say, all right, whatever your tax liability is, less your estimates, that's your quarter 3 and quarter 4 payments. So there's going to be a bigger jump between estimates and actuals next year than folks are typically associated. It's $80,000 across 25. So it's not massive, and I don't know that people really think of that way. And it's not like folks' tax went down this year; it just went up by less, or 0.4% less.
Sorry.
And so, but the question that I've had from a few folks too is that, and then it's this on top of the debt exclusion hitting for the schools, which will not hit in 27. We will not see a debt exclusion. If there is, it's an interest only payment, a small amount of short-term debt, so it will be not perceptible. And even fiscal 28 will likely only have an interest only payment on short-term debt. Fiscal 29 is when we'll really see the debt exclusion hit on this. So by the time that marginal increase hits tax bills, this blip will have smoothed and people won't really think about it. If we had left $8,000 on the table, I would have this conversation with you. I'd say whatever, but $80,000 was substantial.
As much as, you don't, it's not necessarily your process involved in. I would like to understand more of the details, because if you actually gave explicit instructions to something contract to, instructions weren't followed, I would like to understand that from a future partnership standpoint.
Yeah, we had a tense conversation about it. So it was a thing called municipal revenue growth factor, which there are particular things within your local receipts budget that if exceed a particular growth percentage relative to your former growth percentage, it takes like additional kind of backup to get to. And that is both growth and contraction. So the accountant's description was that it wasn't a pliable, reasonable rationale to lower local receipts to the level where DOR would still certify our tax rate. I can't say motor vehicle excise is, I want to go from 1.2 million to 900,000. Like, no, that's not, it's not reasonable. So there are things that don't get included in your municipal growth revenue factor that you can tinker with and, extract that additional levy hitting a balanced budget. And that didn't happen. First of all, we should have just appropriated new growth at town meeting to its full extent. We did the $75,000. We should have done somewhere like $110,000 or $120,000. And then the delta of it could have been correct on local receipts. So the kind of original spin is on the assessor and I, but then it was, non-execution of my directive from the accountant, but they were under constraints, which when I gave that directive weren't totally communicated. So we understand where it went wrong, and it won't go wrong in that particular way, but it won't go wrong. So it's a savings to the taxpayer this year, and we still manage with a balanced budget, but it's not ideal.
Is that it for your updates?
That's all.
Well, then we have Parks Commissioner appointment again is the only thing on here, but we were going to do that.
January 7th. They're
All
going to come and do a joint
Next
meeting.
meeting.
And January 21st, we're going to have the CPA public hearing.
Right. And that's that for next meetings. And then, for 18, we're going to enter executive session, for purpose 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or contracts with non-union personnel. Jeremy Stoll, Town Administrator, and we will adjourn from executive session.
This does require.
And this does require a roll call vote. So,
Second that.
thank you, appreciate it. Any discussion? All those in favor, Cooter, aye.
Got it.
Burgos, I.
All right, so motion passes. We will be adjourning from executive session. So have a good night, everybody. And Joe, we will meet you in the next meeting. Closing tonight's meeting at 8:25. Sorry, I'm not closing tonight's meeting. I'm taking on this because close it from executive session.
You're right.
I'm making pursuits. You know why? It's because there's no script in my thing, so.
Oh, no, I was cheering myself on about executive session.
You need to stop this. Join the next one.